it's not liquor related, and it's not dogs on the beach related, so it must be something else,
Not
right?
parking.
Oh, we get parking.
We got
Oh, yeah, that's right. We
Take
do.
a wild guess.
Anyway, welcome. I was going to say you can move in more. I'm embarrassed that we don't have enough chairs. But anyway, welcome and thank you all for coming. I apologize we're running late. We had an executive session that was obviously as important as was obviously important, and I thank you all for being so patient. If everyone could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have a lot on the agenda this evening, so we will try to keep things moving. And I know we have a public hearing, and I'm assuming that we have a lot of people that want to speak, so we will try to get it all done. First on the agenda, we have the public comment period. We have a new video camera system, if you can see on the ceiling. So I just ask that if anyone would like to speak tonight, that you go to the podium. And before you state your comments, if you just say your name and address for the record so that we get them. Oh, yeah, I apologize. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, that's okay. Well, you have the chair. Go ahead. I'll defer to you.
Selectwoman Donnelly had to be in New York for business, so she is joining us via conference tonight. Hi, Denise.
Hi, everyone.
You can say hi back so she knows how many people are here. The magic of modern technology. Soon we'll have FaceTime down here, but that'll probably happen in like 2030. Okay, so public comment period. I just ask that you raise your hand and then speak at the microphone. Toby?
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I wrote your board 2 letters on the subject of changes to the section of the bylaws that deals with the Government and Bylaw Committee. One of them has to do with the appointing committee. That's the chair of the Board of Selectmen, the chair of the Finance Committee, and the moderator, and has to do with how appointments are made. I feel the present system is not, fair and square as regards, public oversight of the committee. The appointing committee meets at a scheduled meeting, usually during the day. Most people are unaware that there is such an animal as the appointing committee. I've asked numbers of times that the appointments and the appointing committee could meet jointly with your committee here so that the public could see the candidates and ask questions or offer comments on them, as is done with any other appointments. It's unlike other appointments. I also propose changes to the appointing committee.
Toby, move your mouth just a tiny bit back, just so we don't get the feedback.
Yes, I also propose changes to the appointing committee so that it would be, instead of the chair of the Finance Committee, the town clerk, that because the town clerk is an elected official rather than an appointed one. And I've also drafted language that would require public hearings on changes to the charter. We have one coming up with the bottle shop proposal and changes to the bylaws. As it now stands, the Government and Bylaw Committee is charged with advising the town meeting on those subjects, changes to either the charter or the bylaws, but no public hearing is required. So that's a gross oversight. And you may or may not approve of my wording. I would say it's good, but it's quite possible you may be able to do better. I asked you to add these to the warrant. I realize it's already closed. Often you open the warrant and add things and then close it again. Given the fact that the coming town meeting is going to be the all-time stinker with both the bottle shops and the marijuana, I would ask instead that you add those articles when you open the warrant for the fall town meeting in July. Could I have an answer? Would you do that?
Well, I can't commit now to the board taking an action in July, but I could commit to putting it on our agenda and then the board deciding on them when the warrant opens in July, if the other board members would agree to that?
We can certainly put them in as placeholders, of course, subject to the board's final decision at that time.
Sure,
As placeholders, that would be excellent.
sure. Is that,
Crumbs are better than a loaf. Thank you.
I like that one, Toby. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, as long as I'm not a crumb.
Okay, good bargain, Toby. In the back? I know people are like out the door. People are welcome to come in and stand up here as well. There's no reason to just stand outside. Go ahead, sorry.
Hello, my name is Whitney Swanberg. I'm actually the president of the Rockport Teachers Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Rockport Town Public Employees. Some of my members are present here from a bunch of the different unions in town, and we have met as a group, and we are very concerned about the potential increase of our town health insurance for the next year. Last year, our health insurance rate was increased by 9.47%, and this took many of us by surprise, as we were not made aware that this increase was going to be this high, and all of us felt its effects. We have heard that the projected health insurance increase for this year could be as high as 11%, which would prove to be catastrophic for many town employees and retirees and their ability to afford to continue working in our town. While we were recently made aware that an estimate of an 8% increase is currently being used to calculate the town budget, we are still extremely concerned. The cost of living raises the cost of living raises town employees receive from year to year are not high enough to counter a health increase this high. Even with the conservative estimate of 8%, this is more than a 17% increase over 2 years. Several employees of the Rockport Public Schools, for example, specifically in our support staff, found that their last year's wage increase was completely negated by last year's health insurance increase. They thus saw a significant decrease in their paychecks from last year. With an additional large health insurance increase, this will continue to happen. On a broader level, increases of this magnitude have a direct detrimental impact on the budgets of all the individual departments of Rockport. It could be necessary to make cuts across budgets to make up for the increases in health insurance rates. We urge you to consider other options for health insurance by going out to bid and seeing what the rates are from alternative providers. While we want to maintain the integrity of our benefits, we feel it is important and necessary to know all the options that are out there for us and what are the most cost-effective. It has been 6 years since the town has presented us with other options from going out to bid. We strongly feel that we should annually look for the options that are in the best interest of all of our town employees, as well as the town of Rockport. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mitch Vieira is interim town administrator as well as the director of HR. Mitch, do you want to give maybe a 30-second overview of how the town health insurance works and kind of the situation this year?
Certainly.
Great.
There we go. Historically speaking, certainly, we are holding 8% estimate for our budget right now. That's fairly typical with the comments we're hearing. Our history shows that we've done extremely well with rate increases. FY 2012 was a 9.83, which was certainly substantial. FY 13, 14, and 15 were all zeros, were all zero increases. FY 16 was a 5.25% increase. FY 17, when mitigation from the town's Public Employee Committee bargaining process went into play, triggered a 0.41 decrease for the HMOs and a 1% decrease for the PPOs. So
What
we
year was
saw a
that?
decrease, FY 17 last fiscal year.
Okay.
And then obviously the one we're in now is a 9.47. We are aware, we certainly would.
Because we're in
like to
FY
have-
18.
We are in
right
18 now.
Just so people know.
We would certainly like to have, we always want the lower rate for something like that. As the board is well aware and as announced previously, we have work groups that I will be appointing in the next week. One of the three of them is a primary focus, a sole focus on health insurance. So we expect that that work group will spend significant amount of time looking at different creative options that are available to the town. So at this point, we're pressed with our budget. So going out to bid this year is really not something that's logistically possible for us. But we expect that the work group will be studying that and potentially going out to bid for the next cycle. The charge for them is wide and varied to ensure that they look at all possible options to give us the best rates.
Yeah, and we also haven't set the individuals who will be members of the work groups yet.
Correct.
So
I haven't done
wonder
a
if
final
it makes
appointment.
sense to have someone from the group on the insurance work group. Is that legal?
It is. I'll certainly speak with Ms. Swanberg and have a discussion with her about a representative.
Oh, she's
Right
right.
there.
Yeah,
still
I'd,
there.
I'd appreciate that. That'd be great.
Yeah, I think that could be really helpful. That way, you can also, whoever it is, can also report back to the Teachers Association and to all the other, employees about kind of the work that's
Right.
being done, and if you guys have other ideas as well.
Yeah, and I just want to make it clear, it's not just the RTA that I'm representing. We all met as a group, so it's a collective group. So we
Okay.
can
Correct,
find
yes,
someone
it's
from that
the-
collective group to come.
Every unit is represented in that body, certainly
Great.
so.
Yeah, so we're happy to do that moving forward. Does that make sense? Okay,
Great.
great. So
Thank
we'll
you
be
very
in
much.
touch. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming, you guys. Mr. Sepala?
Thank you. Z. Seppel on 92 Granite Street. I went up to the town bulletin board the other day and was looking at the tax delinquent properties. And one of the poor souls that's delinquent, back to 2016, is the Landing Group, owner of the Cape Ann Tool property. So I sort of estimate that over the past years, since 2012, that 5 acres of waterfront property is delivered to the town at about $13,000 a year, not counting the delinquent year of 2016, $52,000 for a 5-acre portion of land on a harbor. And as we all know, general districts are available for very enterprising operations. And I think it's I think Mr. Arsini has asked for updates from you folks on occasion on the status of developments on there. And it seems to me that nothing is being done. Very little has been done to see, inquire of him what can be done. And it's concerning me that it seems like as each year goes by, we are losing not only the $250,000 that some folks thought might come from a KNEB development, but we're substantially losing even less than any kind of development that could be done there. So I just want to bring up to the fact that I think that if somebody's delinquent on their taxes for that, it's a measure of concern and a portion of property that somebody ought to be thinking about more seriously than perhaps they do.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for public comment? That's it? All these people, that's it? Okay. Okay, moving on, we have, this is always exciting. We have interviews of 3 permanent intermittent police officer candidates. Is the Chief Horvath here out in the hall? Okay. Well, he's on it, he's working his way in. Good evening.
Hey, Chief.
Madam Chair, I'm going to have to recuse myself on the last candidate, Nicholas Scatterday, as he is my nephew. So, should I recuse myself for the other 2? They're not my nephews.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Is it one,
Eric Junker.
You know what, it's one motion, so do you want to just recuse
Absolutely.
yourself? Okay. Good evening, Chief. I think in the past, we've had you give an introduction, and then, since we're a little pressed for time tonight, does it make sense to interview the 3 together?
I think it does.
Okay, so why don't you begin?
Yep, so tonight I'm here to present to the board 3 candidates for the position of permanent independent police officer for our town. All 3 candidates were born and raised in Rockport.
We're still getting used to this microphone system, if you haven't guessed.
All 3 candidates are born and raised in Rockport. They passed an exhaustive background process to get to this point, and they're very suitable for the position. I'll bring all 3 of them in now, Mr. Eric Junker, Mr. Caden Tiber, and Mr. Nicholas Scatterday. We have 3 chairs, so I'm going to step up.
Okay.
Allow them to briefly introduce themselves, and then
Great.
their interviews are for the board.
Great. Goodness, I remember when you guys were little kids. It's making me feel really old tonight, as I'm sure it's the case with everyone else in this room. Welcome. Nice to see you. If we can just kind of have you guys go down the line, tell us a little bit, for the benefit of everyone here and the millions of people that are watching us on television now. if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up here tonight, and then the board will ask you a few questions.
All right. My name's Eric Junker, born and raised in Rockport. I graduated from Rockport High School in 2008. I went to Salem State and got a bachelor's degree in athletic training. I then joined the Army and served for 4 years in the Army, and now I'm an EMT and living in town.
Great.
Hi, my name's Caden Tybert. I was also born and raised in Rockport, and I graduated Rockport High School in 2013, and then that led me to Roger Williams University in Rhode Island, where I graduated with a bachelor's in criminal justice, and I just graduated in last May, and I've just been working summer jobs, a lot of part-time, and then I saw this opening for this position, so I applied.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Scatterday, born and raised in Rockport. Graduated Rockport High School in 2013. From there, I went to Bridgewater State for 3 years and then transferred to Salem State. And I'm currently taking one online class right now, which will be up in the spring. I'm also working part-time on fishing boats and whale watch boats, as well as Manchester Auxiliary Police program. And now I'm here.
Cool. Great. Questions from the board?
I'll jump in. First of all, thank you all three for stepping up. And the profession that you're choosing to get into obviously is dangerous, and having folks that are willing to do the job and wear the badge is comforting to know we have it. So thank you for that. Eric, special thank you to you for your service to the Army. Thank you very much for that. I guess it's just one general question is what one skill or quality do you possess that really you're going to bring to Rockport that will make Rockport a better community? Because having officers that are involved in the community, involved with the people here, what do you bring to the table that'll make us better?
I think I've worked with people from all walks of life and all different places around the world, and was able to make relationships and solve issues and do whatever I needed to do to get the job done. So I think I can bring that here and make that work.
Thank you.
I think the biggest quality that I bring is that I'm extremely passionate about law enforcement. I've been surrounded by it for my entire life, and it's always been kind of my end goal. I knew it all through my schooling that I wanted to be in law enforcement in the end, and it's just really something I'm passionate about. And I've also gained a passion for this town and this community over the last 23 years, and I would like to be able to kind of combine both those passions and make it into a job.
I believe one of my biggest skills is my communication skills. And in this type of job, obviously, communication is key. I've worked with all sorts of people, had to interact with all different types of people from all over the world. And I can really communicate and relate to someone on a personal basis. And I think that's one of my biggest strengths.
I guess my last question to Nick would be, what's the most embarrassing thing you can tell us about Paul Murphy? And you don't have to answer that, I'm kidding. Let that one go. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Denise, did you have any questions for them?
No, I just had a comment, and that is I'm just so impressed with all that each of you has accomplished in your lives so far, and that we're very lucky as a town that you're interested in working with us. So thank you.
Denise, did you have anything to add?
Me, Nina.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm happy as well. The 3 native sons want to serve the town and remain here, so that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things that we get to do is interview and appoint permanent intermittents, because it's always like the next generation of police kind of coming up. But it's extra special, especially to have 3 who grew up here, went to school here. And I think it's awesome to see kids who grew up, went to school here, come back and want to settle here, want to work here. That says something about the town, obviously, and it says something about the school system, and it says something about you guys. So thank you all for stepping up. If you don't mind, I'd love to move to the action list briefly, so we can make the motion and vote right now, if that's okay.
Do you want me to take that motion?
Sure, that would be great.
Yes, I move that the board accept the recommendation of the interim town administrator and chief of police and appoint Eric Junker, Caden Tybert, and Nicholas Scatterday as permanent intermittent police officers for the town of Rockport, effective March 4th, 2018.
Second?
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Any further comment? Chief, did you have any further comments?
It's a great group, and we expect big things from them.
Great. Absolutely. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call
Oh,
vote.
roll call vote,
Aye.
right. It has to be a roll call vote
Oh.
since Denise is by phone.
Right.
Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Usually I
You can shake their hands, Paul.
absolutely.
Congratulations, thanks.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome. Glad to have you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you very much. We'll get that
Thanks,
moving later. I'll hear from you.
Get these guys to work. Bruce. Bruce, did you guys want to go quickly? Yeah, do you guys want to go? And then if he wants to stick around for a little while, you can, but that way you can leave. Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to do a really quick but selfish move and just briefly move to the action list for the approval of the Board of Selectmen's Music at the Beach concert series, because my 10-year-old son is here to present, and I want him to get home and get to bed. And something tells me that the mooring fee hearing is going to go on for a little while. So we're just going to move to number 1 on the action list briefly. Bruce and Wyatt, if you guys want to come over to the table.
Well, thank you for, thank
Just
you
for the record, can you both just
Oh, yeah,
give your-
Bruce Reed, Pigeon Hill Street.
Wyatt Wilkinson, Have You Road?
Don't give our street number.
I want to thank you for last year. We did music at the beach last year with no idea how well this would go, and we did 4 shows, and we were really lucky. We had decent weather. I won't say great weather. We had one show. We had really sketchy weather, and the attendance was down, but otherwise it went really well. And when we started to do this, I had no idea how important the American Legion would be to us. And Larry Story and the crew down there just stepped up and were amazing. They opened the building. They had the bathrooms available for people to use. They did their popcorn and soft drinks. And at the end of the night, when it was around 10:30, and I'm still down there making sure the place is clean, and it was Larry and I that were sitting down there having a good time. And it was a wonderful experience. It also wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this guy next door here. He is my co-partner in this in many ways, and we probably wouldn't be here tonight, ready to go, if it wasn't for Wyatt pushing us to get us moving along. And I'm going to turn it over to Wyatt to fill you in on some more.
Last year we had 4 concerts, and we had 200 to 500 people each one, and it was really good. This year we're trying to switch our days to Mondays so that we don't interfere with these meetings. And we're also going to try to have 6 days instead of 4. We're trying to think of bringing back a few of last year's bands, which include Mari Martin, the Headlands, A-Train, and Pier Ave. We're also thinking about a fundraiser. We're talking to the guys down at the Fish Shack for that, and we might also sell T-shirts for a fundraiser too.
Great.
I believe, why don't we have somebody make the motion, and then if there's anything you wanted to add.
Sounds good. I move that the Selectmen approve the Music at the Beach concert series at the Legion Bandstand on Back Beach for the following dates: June 25th, July 2nd, July 16th, July 30th, August 13th, and August 27th, 2018.
Second?
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Bruce, did you have anything to add?
No, you know, what's interesting, when we started this, there was no intention of just making this kind of Rockport bands and Rockport musicians, but it's kind of turned into that. And all the bands last year are from Rockport, and most of the bands this year that I think we're gonna have play are from Rockport as well. We haven't really talked to them to announce who's gonna be there, when, but we'll get that started this week. And we're gonna try and do, one thing we are gonna try and do, and this is Madam Chairman's suggestion on this one, was we're gonna go to the schools and talk to some of the DECA students and see if we can get somebody who might want to get involved with us this summer and do some marketing for us, and maybe, you know, get some practical experience. And I haven't even had a chance to talk to Rob, but that was a thought that came up. And we're going to try and get, you know, the kids more and more involved in this. And, you know, Wyatt and his friends will be going out, handing out, you know, hopefully flyers that be handed out to people to say when the concerts are and the shows are. So the kids have been great, and we want to keep it going that way.
Yeah.
So
Thanks,
thanks.
Bruce.
Hope you all come down this summer. I know Paul's there all the time, and it's fun.
Yeah, and just to add, I think we were really careful in the scheduling there is actually a lot of music on Cape Ann in the summer. There's bandstand concerts on Sunday nights. This was Tuesdays. We're now trying to move it to Mondays. There is My Place, I think, has hump days on Wednesdays. Gloucester has music on Thursdays. There really is kind of during the season a lot going on, and we're trying to kind of add another night, and it's 6 to 8 p.m. Bandstand. I think Larry Story is going to sell hot dogs this summer. He was trying to talk me into selling alcohol, but I was like, Larry, let's take this one step at a time. So hot dogs would be nice, because last summer people brought picnics and it was great. There was even some tailgating, so looking forward to it again. And other comments from the board?
No, this, obviously, year number 2 should be a terrific year, and I went to a couple of them, and it was great fun. So.
As far as Wyatt, I hope your friends see the difference that you're making and how it's grown from last year to this year, and it motivates them to get involved, because you can make a difference, and you did. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are we ready to vote? Denise, anything else?
No, I just can't wait for summer.
Perfect, okay. All those in favor say, roll call vote. Goodness, you're gonna have to remind me all night.
That's okay.
Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect.
Congratulations.
Way to
Thanks. And thank you, Bruce, for all of your hard work. Great. And Wyatt. Now get home and get to bed. Okay, now back to traffic and parking regulations hearing. We have I have a notice that was in the newspaper to read, Town of Rockport Board of Selectmen Public Hearings, Rockport Town Hall, Conference Room A, Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, 7:15 p.m., traffic and parking regulations. Obviously, we're running late. To discuss possible changes to the traffic rules and regulations concerning inserting Article 11, speed limits, parking violation fines, and Article 5, parking, Section 3, /minute zone. And then should I read the other notice after? I'll wait for that one. Perfect. Okay. Is there a motion to open the public hearing on the parking
Yes,
issues?
I move that the Board of Selectmen open a traffic and parking regulation hearing to hear public comments pertaining to the possible change to the traffic rules and regulations.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly? This is just to open the
Aye.
hearing. Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Okay. Who do we have to present?
Chief Horvath will be presenting this
Here he
evening.
is. Okay, great. Welcome back, Chief.
Good to be back. Okay, good evening. In the fall, the Traffic and Parking Committee met and recommended the items that you discussed a few minutes ago regarding an increase to parking fees, parking ticket fines within the town. Several have not been changed in many, many years and are really below standard for the industry in similar situated towns and cities across the Commonwealth. That's the first portion of it. Second piece pertains to lowering of the speed limit from 30 miles an hour in town to 25 miles an hour in town in areas of thickly settled or a business district in town that are not otherwise marked. And the last piece is consideration for the board of 3 parking spaces that are in front of 67 Broadway that have some impact on the community house. So as I said, the Traffic and Parking Committee recommended these changes. First of all, for the first piece, which is the parking ticket fines, several of which are really under the current standard in the industry and are a source of revenue for us moving forward that we're going to seek to take advantage of for those who seek to violate our parking rules and regulations in town. This won't have any impact on folks that don't violate the parking rules and regulations. Just obviously those that violate will be issued the citation. So you have to answer any questions that you have.
So this is the maximum permitted by law?
The maximum permitted by law is up to $50. So for the ones that you see before you for the increases, some are already set at 50, and the ones that I've asked for increases for, nothing goes above that $50 limit. Handicap parking is a separate category where you can charge above that $50 limit, but everything else is 50 or under.
Okay.
And these increased, Chief, are consistent with other communities?
Yeah, so we did a sampling of several different communities. For instance, all parking tickets in Manchester are $35. Essex is $25. And then you can look at Boston that has certain, parking ticket fees for certain things like meters and so forth that may be in the area of $25. They charge more for some things and less for others than Rockport, believe it or not. But interestingly enough, the town of Ipswich has a varied schedule, and as I understand it, they don't have parking meters in Ipswich, so we couldn't gain an accurate comparison for Ipswich with regards to raising our meter violation for meters. So with Manchester at 35, Essex at 25, we're looking to land about $30 for these specific meter violations, which have been at $15 for many, many years in our town and just way, way below the standard of what it should be.
And what do you foresee to be the increase if this is approved budgetarily? Do you think?
That's a moving target. I know Mr. Wally Hess from the Finance Committee asked me the same question, so I kind of put it back on him because he's the finance guy. So obviously the goal of this, of raising these fees isn't strictly to put the arm on people to give up money to the town. It's really about voluntary compliance. We want people to feed the kiosks, so we have to do less enforcement, and we can generate the revenue that the kiosks and the few meters that we'll have left in town are intended for. So if people feed the kiosks, this is really a non-issue. If they don't, that's when they receive the violation. So it is anticipated to, and I don't know if Wally wants to speak to it, but it certainly is anticipated to raise a decent amount of revenue for the town. Specific numbers I couldn't give to you,
Okay.
but I'm sure Wally might be able to assist.
Speak of the devil.
The devil happens to be here, right? Wally Hess, Finance Committee. A couple of us in the Finance Committee have worked really closely with both the chief and the sergeant on this whole traffic and parking thing. We're trying to do it in conjunction with a lot of improvements that the chief wants to make in the police department itself. And so we're trying to figure out how to make all of these improvements work together. But basically, being conservative, in calendar year 17, we collected $116,000 worth of parking ticket revenue. 116 in calendar 17. The chief is talking about more than doubling the number of enforcement officers. And by doubling, in addition to that, doubling the $15 to $30, we're conservatively estimating that 116 is going to rise to 200,000. You can make an argument that it could be much higher than that. But we're trying to be conservative here and make everything pay for itself. That's without increased enforcement, and then with the increased enforcement that we think we're going to get, you would add another 40,000. If it turns out that this is not approved tonight and we stick with the old rates, then the amount of revenue we would get just from the increased enforcement is about $100,000 less. And just to make a point about the Finance Committee situation, since we're walking into our budget discussions this year at more than $400,000 out of balance, this $100,000 is very important.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
Chief, I know you think everything out, you leave nothing to chance. But maybe this hasn't gone all the way, but if you have an answer, great. If you don't, I understand. How do you plan to enact this, and how do you plan to, I know putting on some more folks and doing that and getting them out there to write tickets, but is there, like, do you have them, I heard something that it was going to be every couple of hours, every spot in town was going to be monitored. I mean, what's the plan for that?
Sure. So in working with Sergeant Hurst, besides being a sergeant in the police department, is also in charge of the parking program in Rockport. So he does that as an ancillary duty. And him and I have discussed at length specific scheduling of parking control officers who are civilian employees, seasonal employees, if you will, for the town. And without going into too much detail and keeping us here longer than we need to be, during the peak part of our season, if you will, during the summertime, we would have 2 parking control officers on each day of the week, 7 days a week, for 8-hour shifts between the hours that the meters and kiosks are currently operational, which is between 10 and 6, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we estimate during that period of time for all of the downtown parking areas that have pay for parking, those 2 parking control officers can make rounds and hit every area on their beat, if you will, once an hour. So in other words, they'll be highly visible. We're hoping that visibility encourages people to put money into or use a credit card in the kiosks and the parking meters and gain that voluntary compliance. But by having them out there dedicated solely for this purpose, if people are seeking to not pay for parking in Rockport, then they're going to be paying a parking fine, and it would be a significantly higher fine is what we're looking for. So,
what about beaches?
We also definitely want to do something at the Seaview Street lot. That's another area that comes up every year as a concern with regards to resident parking stickers. We haven't encountered a lack of, if you will, a lot of people violating the resident sticker in that parking lot. Personally, as police officers, we go there. They're there on a regular basis. There's some possibly, but when officers sweep that lot, there's stickers that are in places that most people walk by don't notice. So the parking control officers right now would be focused on the downtown area and the periphery. If we have problems elsewhere in town, we would certainly deploy them to those areas as well. They wouldn't be given a vehicle, but in the downtown area, you know, we can look to have bicycles employed, and we can also put them into a cruiser and bring them to different areas of town. So if there's an issue, that's what they're there for. They're there to address it.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
And I think one residual benefit to all of this that isn't even financial is that it will hopefully turn spaces over quicker and make more spaces available downtown. Because we've all
Absolutely.
experienced frustration when you drive down there and there are cars like on T Wharf with a $15 ticket and people are like, $15, that's a bargain.
That's right.
You know, I'll park and leave my car there all day, where I think they'll think twice if it's a $50 ticket.
Sure.
And, you know, just more turnover.
Yep.
Goes more spaces.
I agree. Yep.
So, this is a public hearing, so at this point, I'd like to open it up. If anyone has any comments about the proposed changes, just please come up to the podium. Anyone?
Wow.
No? Sure.
Michael Paulus, 18 G Millbrook.
Just one second.
I'd like to know where does all this money from these parking fees, these kiosks, does it go in the general fund or does it go to the chief?
I can assure it doesn't come to me, Mr. Paulson.
Would you like to just briefly explain, since we have millions watching us tonight, where this money goes?
So I don't control the parking funds. What we do once a year is we utilize some of those funds to purchase a cruiser for the department. So anything that comes back to the department in the form of parking monies is usually in the form of a cruiser that's vetted through the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. Any other spending of those monies is not within my purview, so I wouldn't be the best one to answer your question, Mr. Paulson.
Mitch, would you like to add to that?
Certainly. All of the money from that does go into a special revenue account, the parking fund. So in addition to the cruiser that the chief purchases, it covers the kiosks, the purchases, meter replacements, maintenance. It covers the $10,000 that goes to the parking benefit district, which goes to the cultural district. Am I missing anything, Jill? I think that, and traffic and parking, correct. It funds the traffic and parking department that fits with that.
Supports the whole parking.
By law, right. There are laws that, there are,
Whether it's painting the lines on the road or all the things associated.
Everything related to parking.
right. And there are laws that dictate what it can be used for and what it can't. Okay. Stan, did you want to?
Stan Patey, 51 Broadway. Just a quick question. We talked about the income increases. What does it cost for us to collect these monies? I mean, the staff, all the equipment, the new meters, all that stuff. What do we net in a year from that 100,000 now and from the possible 200,000?
Wally?
That's a very good question. We have talked about that quite a bit. We are budgeting, we expect to be budgeting in this year's budget $40,000 for the parking control clerks, since they're mostly working just for a couple months in the summer, and then there's far fewer of them working during the shoulder seasons. But $40,000 is the direct cost of those parking control clerks.
That's for the two that you have now, or for the four that we
The chief is going to try to hire 4, but on any given point in time, there will be 2 on duty.
Okay, so the $40,000 is for
All of them. All of them.
Great. Thank you, Wally. Toby, public comment on this topic?
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Mitch Vieira.
Back up a little again. There
Mitch
you go.
Vieira just said that 10,000 of it went to support the cultural district. How does that count as a legitimate expense of a parking fund?
Madam Chair, through you, the town meeting last year adopted a parking benefit district, which goes towards the benefit of areas where we have meters and we service kiosks, meters, et cetera. So the town meeting directed the funds to go towards the cost for a cultural district director. So town meeting approved that and processed it through a parking meter benefit district.
That was not my recollection of what happened at the town meeting. I thought we authorized the Board of Selectmen to spend the funds that came in from the parking. And I don't recall at the time being told that we were undertaking to support the cultural district out of those funds.
Well, something tells me, Toby, that you will find the minutes and tell me exactly what we approved at town meeting. Any other public comments on this? Was there one more hand? No?
Good.
Okay. So that kind of takes care of those. The only one, I had kind of wanted to deal with separately the minute zone on Broadway.
Your letter said you.
So there's two things. There's the speed limits and then there's the minute zones on Broadway.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering the easiest way to, do you want to deal with the speed limits next?
Your choice, Madam Chair.
Sure, that's fine. Go ahead.
So the speed limit, as I said, in 2016, the state passed the Modernization of Municipal Finance and Government Act that allows municipalities to lower speed limits in town without going through speed studies and all these other things that take lots and lots and lots of time. Several municipalities have gone to this. In essence, what it does is it lowers speed limits in your town from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour unless they're otherwise marked. So in other words, there is a town currently that are 35 miles an hour. Those will remain 35 miles an hour. But any areas that are unmarked or marked as 30 would be reduced to 25 miles an hour. The police department receives, and I personally receive, a significant amount of traffic-related complaints regarding speed. So the ability for us to lower speed limits in town to 25 miles an hour, I see a lot of value in that. To me, it's in our town with narrow streets, densely populated, particularly in the summertime. It's a no-brainer. We need to do everything we can to lower some speeds in town on roadways. So this is one way for us to do that and move forward from here. So
Great. I remember several years ago we actually wanted to do this and couldn't.
it's very difficult.
Which was interesting.
It's very difficult.
Yeah. Questions from the board? Ms.? Any?
I know I get a couple of calls a month about speed limits, and you and I have talked about it, and you've actually deployed resources out there to address that, so I think it's absolutely the right move.
Great. Sure, go right ahead. Just state your name and address.
Yeah, no, Steve Woodrow, Alpaca Court, number 8. What you're saying makes sense. There certainly is a problem. I live out by the high school, particularly the corner of Prospect Street and Summer Street. If you sit there and watch, everybody's going through the stop sign like this, and I have little kids that walk to school. I have, cousins that walk to school, but there's a lack of enforcement there. So, yeah, you're going to raise the speed limit or lower the speed limits, but we need more enforcement. When I was a kid, I lived on Prospect Street, walked to school, and Officer Lesh sat up there religiously every day, and we don't see that. So, and it's not just limited to that street. So what good does it do you to lower these limits if there's nobody there to enforce it?
I can't speak specifically to your problem because I don't believe that intersection that hasn't come on the radar to my attention. I haven't received calls regarding that
You should put a
intersection.
cruiser there.
But I could tell you what, we get a lot of complaints about a lot of other intersections, and we do have officers that are deployed out there. We put our officers religiously out there. The 2 that are on shift are out there conducting enforcement. So we can certainly add that to our list and do what we can to impact the speeding or distracted driving, if you will. But the best thing, besides enforcement, is talk to your neighbor, because at the end of the day, these aren't visitors coming into our town texting on their way to school. They're people that live in this community. So the best thing you can do is talk to your neighbor and say, you know what, instead of being part of the problem, why don't you be part of the solution? So enforcement-wise, we're going to continue to do what we're going to do. I'm going to continue to champion for resources for the department, because what it comes down to is we can only put out the amount of officers that we have. So if you have 2 on a shift, the town of Rockport for 2 officers is a pretty big beat. And although you have concerns in your area, and those are heard, we have concerns in every section of this town.
Oh,
very similar to yours. So.
Understandably, it's just my point. If you're going to lower it and there's no enforcement, I mean, I understand you can't be all places at once, but you know what I mean?
I think not lowering it isn't going to help the equation. So I think
Great.
lowering it and conducting enforcement, as you stated, is the direction we need to go in.
Great. And just to keep moving, so you'll hit that intersection to your morning
Sure.
list.
Prospect and Summer,
I know we
yeah.
get calls
Thank
with
you.
morning intersections all the time, so we
Yeah.
can
Thank
add
you.
that one to the list. Thanks. Any other comments about the speed limit lowering? Okay, moving on to the Broadway minute zone.
So this came before the Traffic and Parking Committee. I believe it also went before the Selectmen at one point for a conversation in this room. It was re-brought before the Traffic and Parking Committee. Ms. Bertolino, you here?
Yeah, I feel bad, though. I don't think the woman who owns the shop right there is here tonight.
Yeah, Diane's here. The Traffic and Parking Committee hasn't made a recommendation on this to the Board of Selectmen, only because it really comes down to what the board wants to do with regards to the 15-minute parking for these spots.
Right. And I know we had asked for some data on the usage of the spots reserved for the senior center behind on, is that considered Upper Main or Main Street? Like
Yeah.
behind the community house?
Main Street, yeah.
I just feel bad. I don't know if we notified the woman who owns the shop about this tonight. So I'm just not comfortable making the decision tonight if she wasn't notified, because I know the last time she was here, I told her we'd do that, but we can still allow any public comment on it. And then
You want to remove that from the motion?
we
when
can
it's
remove
made?
it from the motion when it's made, but we can still allow public comment briefly. Did you want to comment on this one? And we'll keep it moving. We'll be to the next hearing shortly, promise.
You start or I'll start? Okay. Diana Darrow, 15A Forest Street. I'm the chair of the Rockport Council on Aging. Am I on? Okay.
We've got you.
Yeah. Rockport's a diverse community, and we represent different aspects of it in this particular issue. We are not here to shut somebody's business down or do anything of that sort. We are concerned for the public service aspect, which the community house offers in programs and expeditions and the opportunity to have people whom you see regularly. I'm concerned especially about lunch because we have about a dozen people who come for lunch every day. And a 15-minute parking area that's adjacent to the facility is certainly not conducive to anybody's idea of lunch. We're living in the present with some things that I believe are somewhat left over from historic use of the space. I understand that there may have been a convenience store there at one point where you wouldn't expect to go in and walk up and down the aisles the way you might in Stop and Shop or Shaw's or something like that, where you would run in and get whatever it was you needed and you'd run back out. I believe this is the last area in which that is still persistent under regulations. I think it was, there were some other spaces in the downtown area years ago, but those have all changed or changed hands in some fashion. I can't speak to how that happened, but I understand that that's in part the history. We're especially supporting the public service aspect of serving seniors and giving them a place to come to and having the familiarity of being able to come to a known place and not worry about having to walk from the town lot or not find a place at all to park. There are only 3 parking spaces that are generally open on the community house grounds themselves. There's a 4th one, which is for handicap parking. And obviously, since we have programs that go on during the week, during the daytime hours, 3 spaces on our property there is not adequate to match up with the number of people we have and hope to continue to encourage to come do all the types of things that we offer. Right now, in the morning, we have a couple of classes in exercise and strength and balancing, which are regularly attended by about 50 people. Not every single one, but overall during the daytime hours and earlier than lunchtime, basically. So we're looking at especially a time frame when there are very active uses of the senior center. Our lunch starts before noon, but we really wouldn't like to ask people to eat in 15 minutes. It's not part of the social aspect.
Great. I just had a quick question.
Yes.
How many, I know that there are spots reserved behind the community
There-
house as well.
there are
How many?
5.
There are 5. So those are in addition. So there are 5 plus the 3 in the lot.
Yes, and we are monitoring that area to see that, in fact, for instance, people who are working at the senior center, whether it be part-time or whatever, that they are in fact using those, but it still isn't a match up to the numbers of people we have who are trying to come to the senior center.
Okay.
Or the community house in order to avail themselves of some of the things that we offered. One of the difficulties, of course, is that we're speaking to a distinct group for whom other issues than simply finding a place to park may be a part of their choice to come and use our facilities. And that is that the senior center, in a general way, is kind of open, but it's in general also supposed to be.
Hold on just one moment. If they could just step out in the outer hall so that we can just still hear what, if they're gonna keep talking. Thank you.
I don't think they heard you.
Can you guys just tell them if they're gonna keep talking to move outside? Thanks. Great.
In any case, what I'm addressing is that people who are generally considered to be seniors, 60 years age and older, may indeed have issues with having to walk 5 blocks or something of that order in order to avail themselves of something that is a generous offering. Maybe they come regularly for lunch with their friends.
Okay.
Or they're participating in things that they find either physically or mentally enlightening and want to be able to do that
Okay.
more at will. And as we know, Rockport has a problem with parking anyway.
Right.
It's the nature of one of the oldest towns around that
Okay.
we couldn't foresee the numbers of cars that we have.
Thank you. Okay. And I did just realize that we didn't actually extend an invitation, because I know the last time you were here, the woman who owned the business was here, and I assured her that when we discuss this next, we would invite her, and I don't think that made it down the line. So I think we will have to put this on another.
Do it again.
Do it
Yes.
again.
Okay.
But obviously, this is a public hearing, and your comments are noted.
It was in the newspaper, though, correct?
It was, but I did tell her that we
No,
would
I-
make sure she
I
was
think that's
invited,
true.
and
I think
and
I
I would
recall that
obviously
as
only
well.
want to be fair to her as well.
Yes.
As we know, the numbers of people that read the Gloucester Times seems to be dwindling. So just out of fairness to her, I would put it on another agenda, but obviously, thank you both for coming and making these comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
nice to
appreciate the
see you
time.
as always. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments on this for this evening? Okay. Any further comments from the board? Is there a motion to
Very
close
much.
the hearing? Yeah. Oh, sure.
I just want to say I do have a petition with signatures on it, 124, asking to take the signs down. So
Okay.
if I'll
Sure,
give
you
you
can just
this.
give that to us. Sure, thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, is there a motion to close the hearing?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Okay. Is there a motion? It's long.
There is. Get comfy, folks.
We'll do it quick. We'll
All
be
right,
quick.
I'll try to zip through this.
Zip through it,
There we
Don.
go.
Zip through it.
All right. Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen, 1, insert Article 11 speed limits and enact Sections 193 and 194 of the Act to Modernize Municipal Finance and Government, August 9, 2016, specifically local speed limits, safety zones, page 15, in Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 17C, as amended, and, number 2, amend Article 10, Section 4, penalties, parking violations, fines under Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 20A and a half. Group A, reaffirm current listed fines at $50 and add the following violations and fines. Add all-night parking when restricted, remove from Group B with fine of $50. Add interference with snow removal, remove from Group B with fine of $50. And add a new category of wharf, park, or beach violation with fine of $50. Group B, all current listed fines be increased from $30 to $30 from $25, with the exception of all-night parking when restricted to be moved to Group A and increased to $50. Interference with snow removal to be moved to Group A and increased to $50. Add overtime parking removed from Group C with the fine of $30. Add kiosk meter violation removed from Group C with the fine of $30. Remove and discontinue use of invalid inspection sticker, and remove and discontinue use of invalid registration. Group C, all current listed fines be increased from $20 to $20 from $15, with the exception of overtime parking, which shall be moved to Group B and increased to $30, and meter violation, which shall be renamed kiosk meter violation, moved to Group B and increased to $30.
Almost done.
There we go. Group D, reaffirm current listed fines at $100 with the exception of handicap parking, which shall be moved to Group B and increased to $150. Group E, big finale here. Establish a new group created for violations with the fine of $150 as follows. Add handicap parking, remove from Group D with the fine of $150, and add a new violation titled obstructing handicapped access area with a fine of $150.
Great. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion from the board?
Good.
Chief, any further comment from you guys?
Thank you very much for the support. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you
There you
very
go.
much.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks for your work
Thank
on
you
that. Very much.
both. Thanks, both of you. Okay, moving on. I'm just gonna quickly, an hour late, I'm sorry, we're going as quick as we can. I'm just gonna briefly read the public hearing again, which is required by law. Town of Rockport Board of Selectmen, public hearings, Rockport Town Hall, Conference Room A, Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, 7:25 PM, not quite. Mooring fee rate to discuss a possible increase in the mooring rates for Rockport Granite and Pigeon Cove Harbors. Signed, Board of Selectmen, Sarah J. Wilkinson, Chairperson, in the Gloucester Times, February 26th, 2018. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
Yes. Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen open a mooring fee rate hearing to hear public comments pertaining to possible changes to the mooring fee rate.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Okay, the hearing has now been opened. Is there a presentation? I will, after the harbor masters speak, I will allow public comment, obviously. Yes.
What was the date that the public notice was published in the Times? I was told it was a week ago Monday, which doesn't give it the 14-day minimum time for a public hearing notice.
It was the
I'd like
26th.
clarification on that, please. And I imagine the town administrator can tell us whether this is now legal or illegal.
Which the notice says February 26th, but that doesn't make sense, does it?
That doesn't make sense. Let me see. So I will take a look at it.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's not waste
So,
all of you being here, so
Madam
we'll,
Chair, yes, either way, you can certainly accept the comments, and
Sure.
and if there's an action, then we can adjust that separately, but I would say carry on with the comments.
Okay.
sure, great. Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you, just for the fun of it, introduce yourselves for the camera?
Rosemary Lesh, born and brought up in Rockport, class of 67.
Don't those new officers just make you feel older and older?
Older and
Honestly,
older.
I'm like,
Madam Chairman, members of the board, Scott Story, Rockport Harbor, born at Addison Gilbert, working on growing up in Rockport.
There you go.
my guess is that somebody here was born in their house in Pigeon Cove, and they might tell us. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Well, we just want to thank everybody for all of these guys supporting us and supporting the harbors of Rockport.
This is a hearing, and we're here tonight. We have had great deliberation with members of the Finance Committee and
Hours and hours.
hours and hours. And this is, like we say, a public meeting, and this is the public. This is the people of Rockport who are here. There are, I bet, a few boat owners in here. And after sitting and listening to them and listening to everything, we have a recommendation.
And we have received recommendations from the Finance Committee, which we did not agree on. We presented something to the Selectmen that we also did not agree on, and we'll get right to the chase here, and we just want the mooring fees to stay the same.
After hearing from and seeing the support of the people and the boat owners who happen to be here, we feel that without any increase in services, without any change to anything, we'd like to stay the course. So we hope you'll open it up to the rest.
Right.
To everyone else, okay. Wally, did you want to make a comment at this point, or? I know. And I'm not.
Excuse me.
Perfect. And I know it's late, so we'll all try to be brief, and then when it comes time for public comment, I'll just say this while Wally's making his way up there. I want everyone who wants to speak, I will allow to speak, but I would hope that people don't start repeating themselves. So if somebody says exactly what you were gonna say, maybe not say it, or just say, I agree,
Can
so
I
we can
just
keep moving.
Add one more
Sure.
thing. Weiss, are you on the mooring waiting list?
Wyatt?
Yes.
He
Wyatt?
is on the, he is on
Yes.
the waiting list.
Do you hope to someday have a mooring in Rockport? Okay.
Listen to
yours.
all these people.
Me too. I've been here for 45 years.
You're very lucky to be in the situation you're in, Honeywood.
Wally Hess Finance Committee. About 4 years ago, we went through this, and we increased the mooring fee from $7 a foot to $10 a foot. That $7 had been in place since 1992. As part of that process, I went and talked with the harbor master departments of Gloucester, Marblehead, Manchester, and Salem. And I asked them, what are your fees, how do you set them, and what's involved? How many moorings do you have? I have this all written up. I think I probably sent it out to the board 4 years ago. And the one common thread throughout all of these discussions was the mooring and slip fees that we charge in our town or city are enough to pay for the harbor master department and all of the services it provides to boaters. That was the one common theme for all of these cities. A couple of us met with the harbor masters over the last couple weeks, and we went through 10 different categories of expenses in the harbor master department, and we adjusted them down to what percentage of that expense related to boaters and what expense related to other things. Bottom line is a little bit more than $170,000 worth of expenses in the harbor master department was related to boating. The aggregate revenue that we have in our current rates brings in $118,000. So we're short by more than $50,000. So that encouraged a meeting with the harbor masters. And we had good meetings, frank discussions. We had pretty good time, I would say, during most of it.
Most of it.
Most of it. And so we went in and said, look, we need to get the mooring fees and the slip fees up so that we generate $170,000, which is what our cost is, so that we'll be like all the other cities and towns on the North Shore. That required mooring fees to go from $10 a foot to $17 a foot. And the slip fees for the slips behind the yacht club would go from $18 to $25. Where we wound up, after thinking it all the way through with the harbor masters, is this year we'll just do a first step. We'll go from 10 to $12.50, so that people with an average boat length of 20 feet will only see a $50 a year increase. And same with boats on the piers, they'll see a $2.50 a foot increase. We thought that was a good first step, so we basically said, okay, we can live with that, and we'll come back in a year or two and go through additional steps, because we clearly have to get to covering the full amount. Otherwise, the taxpayers of this town are subsidizing the boaters who are using all the services that the harbor masters are providing. We are in a situation in our town. Our finance committee has put together a study looking out over the next 4 years, showing that we're going to be in very significant deficit, more than $2 million deficit by the time we get to year 2020. So we have to take a whole series of hopefully relatively small steps in order to avoid that, because we can't figure out how we're gonna survive that without a big Proposition 2.5 override, which is very hard to actually execute. It's going to be difficult. This is one small step. It increases revenues from 118,000 to 137,000. And it only costs the average boat owner about $50 a year, which is a small amount compared to owning a boat.
Okay. Are there comments from the board? Why don't we do brief comments from the board, and then we'll open it up to the public?
Yeah, Wally, I have a question on these harbor master expenses.
Yes.
So you're coming up with 180,000. Part of it is for 10% for the granite pier staircase, seawall repairs in Pigeon Cove and White Wharf. I don't see how these are directly related to moorings. I'm just.
We had a thorough discussion about those. We're looking only, let's take the biggest one here. Pigeon Cove seawall repairs. If we didn't have the Pigeon Cove seawall, we wouldn't have any moorings in Pigeon Cove. The debt service there for the work that we recently did is about $120-something thousand a year. And so after a lot of discussion, we finally agreed that, only about 25% of that relates to the moorings. The other 75% relates to protecting all the houses and the environment around Pigeon Cove. And so what we put in this calculation is just the 25% of that debt service, as long as that's out there.
So I have a question. So the first number, which is adjusted, so the harbor master's whole budget is last for FY18 was 122.8, right? And then you adjusted it to taking 112, almost 113 of that for moorings. That honestly just doesn't seem legal to me. It seems like, I actually, to be honest, now looking back at this, I'm feeling like for FY17, I just checked with the accountant. I think we took in, 116? Close to 116? So that actually seems like kind of close to the line. Because the harbor, only a portion, I don't know, how many moorings do we have total?
360, 380.
Right. And so if you were to look at your time, say 100% of your time, what percent would you say is spent on actually servicing the moorings as opposed to kayaks, wharves, tourists, kayakers stuck on Straitsmith, people who are lost in the fog, the millions of other things that you guys do?
We would guess 10 to 15% of the time is devoted to the mooring holders. A small
Yeah, so that's my concern. My concern isn't, it's not I'm not faulting the finance committee. Believe me, I get it. We're all in this together. We have to figure out our way out of the fiscal situation that we're in. But I'm just concerned that, as we know, the fees are supposed to be directly related to the moorings and not just boaters, and it just doesn't pass the test for me.
So, consistent with the other cities and towns that I talked with, they looked at it the same way as what's on here.
Yeah.
Which is, you're trying to keep the entire place safe, and you're trying to make it function. And whether it is your particular boat that gets into trouble, your boat on your mooring, or whether it's a boat on a Gloucester mooring that gets in trouble in Rockport, isn't particularly important, because we may have a Rockport boat that gets in trouble in Gloucester. We would expect the Gloucester harbor masters or Coast
Right,
Guard, whomever to-
right, and I would expect the Gloucester taxpayers to foot that bill. Similarly to if I get in a car accident in Gloucester and the ambulance, right? Right.
Well, no, not the taxpayers, no, the mooring holders are paying for the.
Right, so I guess I would argue that that's inappropriate as well. I mean, I don't know, I mean, I just from my research on, it feels to me like we're already kind of pushing the line, and I know that our mooring fees are some of the highest on Cape Ann. I know that
Right, our
Manchester's
fees have been
higher, but.
In New England.
Right, on the,
Oh, in New England?
Right,
Yeah.
and
Yikes.
from what I'm hearing, Sarah's saying that the entire budget last year was about 22,000, and you
123.
took in 116,000 in revenue from the moorings alone, so that just about covered your budget.
Just looking at one component. Okay, for instance, we don't have the, you can see here, we have the harbor master's benefits, which we've listed, and we've only charged half of them.
Oh, okay.
Let me go for the-
Yeah, if you don't mind, just so we can. And I know it's a public hearing, we'll get on to the public in just a second.
Right. So, we went through this very thoroughly to try to figure out what was fair.
Yeah.
Looked at all the components, looked at the harbor master's health insurance expense, and some of that is, half of that is allocated to the ambulance, because the same people work in the ambulance department, so we only counted half of those benefits.
Right. If you're going to speak, I just ask that you go out in the hallway and not speak in here, okay? Thank
Right.
you.
We looked at the cost, for instance, of maintaining pilings, repairing pilings, and we finally concluded that about a third of that relates to moorings, because you've got wharfs and things that are held on by the pilings. And it's 30% we put in here. The other 70% we said is a general town expense, but not more expense. So we only charged 30% to that. Putting in, dealing with repairing White Wharf, you can see we got this in here for only $1,000 a year. It's 10% of the debt service associated with doing that. The same with the Granite Pier staircase, which to some extent mooring holders use that. When they park upstairs, they will be using that staircase to get down to their boats. Again, we looked at the debt service and we multiplied by 10%, figuring that 90% was not mooring holders. So we went through a pretty careful
Yeah, no, I understand you
process
did. Yeah, I think
to
it's
try
just a
to
difference.
allocate
I
this
think it's a
just to
difference of
the
opinion.
boaters.
Yeah.
And so that's where we came up with the 182. We credited all of the boat excise tax that we collect, even though state regulations say we should credit half of it. We credit all of it to get us down to the 170. So
Okay.
we think this is a pretty fair description of what it costs to run the moorings and
Okay.
slips.
Okay, at this point, is the board okay with if I open it up to public comment
Please do.
at this point?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, great. So I just ask two things. You state your name and address, no personal attacks, and that you direct all your comments at the board, not at, not at the finance committee. And try not to repeat each other. Right, if you want to go first, go ahead.
Paul Terrio.
Bye, Bruce.
just
Bye,
go up to
Wyatt.
the podium.
Yeah, please.
I don't need a microphone.
We need it.
No, shockingly, they actually do for TV. And Toby, who has
I'm not
watched
looking-
it on TV, I have not, but he says we actually do need the microphone.
In reference to what Mr. Hess said, Marblehead, Manchester, Salem. I fish out of Pigeon Cove. We have no electricity, no running water, and we climb down ladders that are unsafe to get to our boats. We don't complain, we do what we do. The ladder in front of my boat broke 5 years ago. My crewman fell 7 feet to the float and then went to the hospital. The only reason he didn't sue the town is because his father worked for the DPW. How can you justify
Oh, let's put your comments towards me. We're not going to direct them at.
raising the fees according to Manchester, Marblehead, and Salem? Let's go look at what they have up there for floats and infrastructure. And to say that the taxpayers are paying our way is a reach at best. We're already maybe the second highest in the state. And again, I'm going to bring up the safety issue. The float in front of my boat, I had to put a piece of plywood in it so my crew wouldn't fall through it. The plywood's still there. And again, I'm not going to complain. The DPW's busy. And do not blame Scott and Rosemary. The last thing they should be doing is repairing floats. They do more than their share already. I'm going to leave it at that right now because I'm
Thank you.
getting madder.
Okay. Let's not get mad. Steve?
Members of the board, my name is Steve Willett. I live on Gap Head Road. I won't give you the number. There's so many houses there. First of all, I want to say on behalf of myself, my family, and many boaters that we absolutely appreciate the efforts of the harbor masters. They do a fantastic job. There's no question about it. I also want to say that as a boater, I feel that I should pay my fair share. I also am a taxpayer, and I pay well more than my fair share. But in looking at the increases over the last few years, we went from $7 to $10. And looking back, I sat for 10 years on the Harbor Advisory Committee. I was on the Harbor Planning Committee for 4 years. I look back at that, and as I recall, around then, I think the total harbor expense was about $200,000, and the total harbor income between water and land was around $200,000. It used to be fairly well balanced. What it appears here is, again, we saw it with the police department, everybody's trying to fill a budget gap. And it is inappropriate to start parceling out little bits of expense and put them on taxpayers, calling it a rate increase. Presently, the moorings generate about, I believe, $116,000 of a $119,000 budget. The harbor masters do a lot more than tend to moorings or rescue just boaters, whether they are mooring holders from Rockport or mooring holders from Gloucester. They also serve as shellfish wardens. They rescue divers on a regular basis. I don't see any provision in here to charge divers. Some cities and towns actually charge a fee based on boats that are habitually in a harbor. So, for example, if you had 50 kayaks, and I sent you a fairly lengthy letter. I hope somebody reads it someday. It may be irrelevant after tonight.
We got it.
In Gap Cove or Coast Guard Cove, where I live, last year on one day there were 46 kayaks stored on the side of the beach. 42 kayaks, 4 rowboats belonging to people who own boats in the cove. None of those kayaks pay a fee, but I can tell you that on average, I rescue 2 kayakers a summer. And I'm not out there nearly as much as these guys, because I've seen them do it at least, it's 1 or 2 a week. So to say that 100% of the harbor master's expense should be borne by the mooring permit holders is really without any basis. I did go through, I actually went through the exercise shortly after you raised the rates the last time around, and we are, other than, I'm told Manchester is $12.50 a foot. By the way, Manchester, I believe, pays their harbor master $90,000 a year, and they're about to hire another one for $30 a year, $30,000. They also provide free moorings to transients. They have showers available for transients. They have town docks. They have all sorts of services that in this town, actually, the yacht club pays the town to put up the building to supply the services that other towns supply. But looking at it, I mean, Bourne, $100. My boat in Bourne would cost $100. In New Bedford, $150. In Gloucester, $204. In Salem, $204. This is for a 34-foot boat. Some towns just have a flat fee. In Marblehead, it would be $221. Yarmouth, $225. Winthrop, $200. Hingham, $238. Plymouth, $272. Dennis, $299. Rockport, it's currently $340. And the original proposal would have made it $680. I could almost put it in a marina. And this is another little aside. In Rockport, it is very tight. We have very high mooring density. I'm paying for 2 moorings. In Gloucester or any of these other towns, I'd have a one-ended swing mooring, and I wouldn't have to worry about that second piece of iron and chain and rope behind the boat. Rockport we have a very short season. We really, in Rockport's outer harbor, we're lucky if we can get in by May 1st, and you really need to be out of there in mid-September. So for, at presently one of the highest rates with the fewest services, the shortest season, and the most expensive mooring gear, I don't know how anybody could justify paying more. I think it's unfortunate. I'm very happy that the harbor masters have listened to the public comments, and I hope you will listen to them and listen to these others in the room. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul?
Paul Kovich on Pleasant
Oh,
Street.
microphone.
I just prefer not to get up there.
All respect to Scott and Rosemary, who are doing a wonderful job. The whole problem seems to be plug the budget hole. And it starts with voting. It goes back into the school system. We're paying, for example, choice students coming into town here, and the choice students are paying minimal amount of money. We're spending money that way. We're spending money every other place. What we do need is a conservative fiscal policy, and it doesn't seem to be working. The yacht club and all of the area over there is well taken care of. But the important thing is, this can't go on every year, and it seems to.
Thank you.
Well, am I correct in that the moorings were, the last time they were increased prior to the 4 years was 1992?
It's on the list. We gave you a list in the packet.
Yeah, 92, and then, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So our thought was when we did them to make them appropriate.
Right. No, I get it.
Yeah.
This is sort of a two-part. Again, Steve Woodrow, Alpaca Court. Does this town have a grant writer? Out of curiosity.
We actually, it's funny you should say that. The selectmen have put a placeholder for a grant writer in the upcoming budget.
I think it should be a full-time because they will end up paying for themselves. My wife writes grants for the state, and
Great.
I think that this town is missing a big chunk of change here.
So
without
super
having
helpful
it.
would be for you to make sure you are at town meeting, and when someone puts a hold on it and says they don't want to fund it, I want you to stand up and give this same spiel, because that
Give
would
me
be
a
really
heads
helpful.
up before, and I will.
Serious, I will do that.
First Saturday in April.
My other part is I fish out of T Wharf here downtown, and again for $10 a foot, I have a 48-foot boat, so I pay $480 a year. On top of that, I have to pay a hoist fee to the Rockport Lobstermen's Association. So we pay for our own power. It doesn't cost the town anything.
What's the how much is the hoist fee? I'm just curious.
It's self-policing. We started at 100. We went to 150. We needed to put up a new hoist, a new derrick, the whole 9 yards. We went to 200. So
Storage fees.
yeah, so
Another issue.
it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. We lease that part of the pier from the town. We have to buy insurance that we pay for that covers us in a blanket policy. So, and then again, we have the same problems. I have no power. I can't just go down there and park my truck. I can't, if I come down late or something, there's no parking spots, so I have to go home and I can't go fishing for the day. We contend with all these problems. I talked to a friend of mine in Newburyport, of all places. I said, hey, what do you pay? You know, another commercial fisherman. He says, well, I pay $100 a year for the mooring. I pay $200 a year for the hoist, but I get a parking spot. I get a dumpster. I get a concrete wharf and a ramp to walk down. It's so, I'm paying far more than he is for far less. And quite frankly, if I'm going to take an increase, I got a list of things that maybe we need to address down these wharfs. Us too are walking over floats that have holes in them with plywood nailed on them. We're going up and down icy ladders in the dark, one-handed, with a lunchbox in our hand. None of us are getting any younger. It's
Okay, thank you.
I think we can do better.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak, but we do want to keep moving. Others?
Michael Paulson, 18G Millbrook. I've been a fisherman for 43 years. As long as I've been a fisherman in this town, most of the time was at Pigeon Cove. The town always paid for the wharves and anything that was dry land. It came out of the DPW budget. Anything that was in the water came out of the harbors, through the harbor masters and the harbor department. They start talking about the few other harbors that are paying more money than we are per foot at this present time. Manchester specifically, they just went up. The biggest reason they just went up to pay more money is because they don't get any federal funds for dredging. Town of Rockport got millions, not too many years ago. It automatically made our harbors a federal anchorage, which means every dime that's collected from the water in the harbors, mooring fees, transient fees, and those type of things, 100% has to go back to the harbor. You can't go to fix the stairs down the Grant Pier. You can't go to do other things on land. You can't go to Mr. Parisi to undercut his budget because he put in one of the ladders and he decided to charge the harbor department for putting it in.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Last chance. No one else? Okay, comments? One more? One more.
Jim
Me.
Waddell.
Jim, of course you had to speak.
Yeah, I know, I didn't want to, but anyhow, I'm a little bit confused because I heard one figure that says 116, and then I heard another figure that said 170. And it said, I think you were talking about some stairways and some wharf-related fixes that had to be that. Now, the 116 figure, which was mooring fees, what fees are collected for lease fees and shack fees? And there's all kinds of fees associated with all the different.
Those are separate. Those are separate line items in
Yeah,
the
but
budget.
if they're adding stuff into his 170,000, why shouldn't it be added on top of the mooring fees to compare it? We're comparing apples to oranges here, and I just don't understand where that comes from. That's all.
I'll just give you a very quick response.
Do you know how much is collected on the wharf fees?
Yes. But what we did when we looked at these numbers is we looked at the expense and we then multiplied by a percentage that led only or dealt only with the mooring fees. To the extent that you have these other fees or other expenses, that was a different percentage. So, for example, you pick the use it as an example of the staircase, which hasn't been built yet, but we're going to have a staircase. So we got in this budget $1,000 a year out of that 170,000 is the staircase, and to the extent that mooring holders are going to be able to take advantage of that is worth $1,000 a year only out of the 75,000 that we're paying for it. So what we did is we looked at all these categories, and we concluded, or we came up with a percentage that related specifically to mooring holders.
How much was collected? You said you had that number on wharf.
I'll say it. Ruthie.
Lease fees, shack fees,
45,000.
How much?
45.
No. That goes into the general fund.
Yes. And that's another subject for another meeting.
Okay, let's rein it back in. Okay, we're doing so well. Let's keep it. Stan, one comment?
Stan Patey, 51 Broadway. The harbors aren't just used by us, the boaters. If these harbors weren't here, none of this other stuff would be here. You wouldn't have your bearskin neck, you wouldn't have your tourism, you wouldn't have any of these things. This is something that belongs to the entire community, and we're all responsible for it. Not just the few who have boats in the harbor and are paying multiple fees for keeping them there. This harbor's for everybody, and it shouldn't be, we shouldn't just be billed because we have a mooring in there.
Okay. Ruth, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, Grant Pier Staircase.
Just announce who you are.
Ruth George, 86 Granite Street, Chairman of the Community Preservation Committee. The Granite Pier Staircase, I believe, shouldn't be in that. It's coming from CPC money that is separate from the harbor master or the town money. It's CPC money that was given specifically for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's true, but it's still taxpayer money, and we're only taking counting 1,000 out of 100.
Right, but so here's just a question, but wouldn't that, I know we talk about keeping community house rates really low because we don't want to double dip, because the taxpayers who paid their CPC money to renovate the community house, we don't, we keep the fee basically to pay for the cleaning because we don't want to make them pay again. So wouldn't that be, charging that there be the same thing, double dipping? If we kept the 1,000 whatever percent on that list, wouldn't that be basically charging the taxpayers twice? The only way it wouldn't be is if the mooring holder was not a.
On that list for purposes of calculating a fair mooring.
Okay.
It's not- we don't have it in the budget.
Okay.
It's just for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. We'll comment at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Larry.
Larry
12 Dock Square. I am an outsider, only been here 51 years. Many people are unhappy about that, but that's okay.
Not me, Larry.
Oh, right, yeah. Thanks. Thank you. One of the issues that was just brought up about it being more than just about the boaters, I have to underline and hopefully exponentially say absolutely the best poetry that's been written in the English language in the last 50 years has been written. 3 of the 4 quartets were written about here. You can't pay for that. Coming down, walking your dog, being on the edge of the wharf, maintaining it so you can do that. Whether you have a boat or not doesn't matter. I understand the Finance Committee's recommendations and their approach, thinking and everything can be put into dollars and cents. I went through an exercise for 4 months when I went to graduate school of getting down to the unit of measure of quality and existence. And they came down, at that time, they came down to a unit that's been thrown away. Now we talk about bits and bytes, everything can be put into that. But you cannot put those harbors. I came here to talk about bad choices. I came here to long line halibut that lasted 1 year. And I've been making but I'm a vet against the war and commercial fisherman and a tree hugger and love birds.
I love when you come, Larry. I just love it.
Somebody out there is lying. Somebody out there is lying.
An evening with Larry.
It is fun.
2 leather chairs.
No. The harbors right now are filled with, there's so many ways to, yes, take advantage of the great resource that is a common resource. This is more of a common resource than, it's an education beyond just what the schools are. We should have a state-of-the-art ecological program. The 2 embayments that we live on could harbor very small units, not intrusive to other human beings, and do some of the best research around.
Okay, I love when you come, but let's wrap it up, because we have a lot more tonight.
I think the issue of expanding the negative effects of what's being proposed far outweigh the positive effects of a much wider scope. The mooring fees are part of a web of our embayments and our harbors.
Thank you.
I can't believe I agree with Rosemary as much as I do. But I think at bare minimum, it should be turned down in the short term and expanded to what can we really do? How can we survive? I mean, Granite Pier alone.
Thank
It
you.
has 42, I've listed them, 42 uses. It's not just about the storage. It's not just about pot storage. It's all the above. It's more than just, although this issue right now, half of these guys should be asleep. They got to get up in the morning.
You're right. Okay. Does anybody want to follow up, Larry, or are we going to leave it at that?
I bring up one more.
Very briefly.
Yeah, Mr. Sepula brought it up earlier from Granite Street. We have the Finance Committee has a $400,000 hole they're in. We get it. We have a 5-acre parcel of land down there that's generating 0. It's an eyesore. That's $125,000 that we could be getting in taxes that would make that hole a little bit smaller.
Thank you. On that note, I think it's time to wrap it up. Is there so let's close the hearing and then the board can make comments?
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to close the hearing? Denise, is that okay with you?
Yeah, no, you're
Great.
just gonna close the hearing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just a motion to close the hearing.
Oh, okay. I would like to move that the Board of Selectmen close the public hearing.
Second?
So moved. Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
There's just that little lag. I'm always nervous. Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Okay, motion has been made and in the affirmative. Now comments from the board.
Yeah, I can start, and I hope to hear from other members. Certainly, the Finance Committee has a very difficult job, and they do year after year. They are the finance people. They're the people that look at all the money and the shortfalls, and they work tirelessly from about January until town meeting, all year round, but pretty much on a 2 or 3 times a week. To run this town is expensive, and we have to pay our employees. Insurance, we heard about insurance earlier in the meeting about how that continues to grow and so forth. But and I hope people will come to town meeting and participate and lend your voice, because as I said, it's expensive to run this town. This is not a wealthy community. It's a beautiful community, but we don't have the money that other communities like a Marblehead and down in the Cape and Manchester and so forth. Arguably one of the most beautiful towns in the country, if not the world. But our finances are tough, so we're always trying to come up with different ways to get revenue. With that said, I do not think that we should have an increase to the moorings. The moorings were increased 4 years ago. I think that is sufficient. I think what we need to do going forward is have a rotation of when we look at fees and structures and so forth, so that they need to be revisited. The fact that wasn't increased 1992 was the last time, unbelievable. Long Beach, the same thing. I mean, they went years without an increase, and then we obviously everyone knows what happened there. But we need to have the revenue, but I don't think this is the right route. So I would like to suggest that the board keeps the mooring fees exactly where they are.
Madam Chair, if I may, I agree with Selectman Murphy. Ooh.
Who?
Well, that's worth something right there.
Well, now fees are gonna have to go up.
Yeah. What I said, forget about it.
They make money on it.
My concern is that I don't like the way the numbers were run. It doesn't make sense to me when I hear that the whole budget for the harbor masters is X, and then the mooring fees bring in almost that already. I have a little bit of an issue with that. I'm also a little embarrassed about some of the conditions that everyone's talking about with plywood over boards and climbing down icy ladders. That doesn't seem safe or right to me. So I'm gonna just recommend and make a motion that we keep the mooring fees at the same rate.
Okay, Don?
Yeah, we all know, as was stated by Wally, that we're coming into some very, troubling times financially in this town. And everything has to be looked at, every angle, every possible source of revenue has to be looked at. This isn't one of them. I have friends in this room, I have family in this room, and I have to be able to leave this room and look at those friends and family and fellow citizens and convey to them that I feel confident that that was the very best use of their funds to be able to extract more money from them because it was in the public interest. And in this case, I can't do that. I can't look you folks in the eye and say that this is the best use. So I, like the other two selectmen who've already spoken, will not be supporting this either.
Denise, did you want to comment on this?
I have to say that I agree with everything that has been said up until this moment, although I'm not related to Don's family. But I just feel very uncomfortable with what sounds like an approach that was based on, best guesses and estimates, and I'm not comfortable with the way the numbers were put together. Ruth George's point about the staircase, I think, is a good one, and I will not support increasing the fees.
Thank you. I echo the sentiments of everyone, which I think I said at the beginning as well. My issue is I understand what the financial situation we're in. I mean, I've been poring over the budget since we received it close to 2 months ago now. There are lots of people, and this board included, working to make that number smaller and smaller, and I believe it's getting smaller. But the budget problem is a town problem. It's not a mooring holder problem. I understand it actually troubles me even more to hear that that's how other towns are coming up with their fees, because to me, it's like a legal issue, and it just doesn't feel right to me at all. I think that obviously the Granite Pier, the whole list to me is just not right. But I think as a town, we have a lot to tackle financially. We're working with the school, we're working with the police, we're working with the DPW, we're working with the library. I hope all of you will come to town meeting, because in the next few years, as a town, we're gonna have to decide what level of services we want and what level of services we're willing to pay for. We have an excellent school system. Do we wanna, keep that up? Do we have a library? Do we wanna keep the library open? These are the questions, but they're town questions, not mooring holder questions.
And they come with price tags.
And they come with price tags. And, we're lucky enough to live in one of the towns with one of the lowest tax rates. Our assessments are high because we live in a beautiful place and we're lucky to live here. But I too, will be not voting to support a hike in this fee. I agree with maybe getting on a regular schedule. I think at some point we should look at all of the different fees and permits, so that we're looking at these things regularly and not, all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, we have to fill a budget hole. Like, let's look at all the fees and permits. So I think we should do that. That's probably a good workshop item.
Yeah, I think it can be done a lot more incrementally at that
Yeah,
point, because rather than a
exactly.
$2.50,
Yeah.
maybe it's a 50 cent or $1, if that's even the case.
Well, and
whenever it
I think it's the
happens.
case of
On a rotation.
incrementally every
Correct.
other year or every 2 years, looking and seeing what are the direct costs associated with servicing the moorings in town.
Yep.
And then from there, making sure that our, and maybe there would be a year that the rate goes down. I mean, wouldn't
Yeah,
that be
right.
nice?
You got some property in Florida. Too.
Paul, always the optimist.
Right.
So anyway.
Let's move
but-
the motion.
Right, but Mina's gonna make a motion. And
Yes.
just before, I just wanna thank everyone for coming, because honestly, sometimes these issues.
thank you, too.
It takes a room full of people to make this happen, and we are thankful that all of you came down. Do you wanna make a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll move that the Board of Selectmen keep the mooring fee rate to $10 for Rockport Harbor, Granite Pier Harbor, and Pigeon Cove Harbor.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded, don't fight over the second. Roll call vote, Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Great. Thank you all for
Thank you, everyone.
coming. Thanks, Wally. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, let's keep moving.
No.
Next, we have approval of minutes of February 13th. And I just ask that if you're going to chat, that you move far out into the hall so we can keep going.
So naked.
I know. Where's everyone going? Okay.
Wow, that cleared the room.
Yeah. Approval of minutes of February 13th, 2018.
Selectman Campbell.
Let me get to it, 1 second.
I know. Gosh.
H.
Should say H.
We're going to fly through the rest of this.
There we go. Madam Chair, I move that the Selectmen approve the minutes of February 13th, 2018.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call. Goodness gracious. I need like a stamp of it. Because Denise is on the phone.
Oh, okay, that's why.
Selectman Donnelly.
Aye.
Poor Denise, she can't even nap during the meeting. Selectman Campbell.
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy.
Recused.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Okay, motion
I was
carries.
trying to be like Denise.
Yeah.
Next, selectman
There's a little
updates.
delay.
Selectman updates and liaison reports.
I think we should just skip that.
Yeah, let's skip that.
I'm just
Do you have
gonna
to
throw-
read that?
I
Yeah,
met
I
with
have to
the
do this.
fisherman, no.
Thank you. I have to do this.
what I
Just
mean?
one, I have two things. Number one, tomorrow night here, 7 o'clock, DPW, commissioners meeting for the rates. I would hope everybody, they're all gone now. I wish we could have said this when everybody was here.
Oh, yeah.
But everybody that can will show up and have their voice heard at that meeting. And now the exciting part. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 32 totaling $127,821.63 and expense warrant number 32 totaling $146,121.10 on February 6, 2018. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 33 totaling $541,260.55 and expense warrant number 33 totaling $585,249.07 on February 13th, 2018. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant 33A totaling $0 and expense warrant 33A totaling $88. Is that $88.91, Mitch? Yeah, right. I forget that one, so I'm sorry. $88.91 on February 13th, 2018. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 34 totaling $105,555.03 and expense warrant number 34 totaling $264,238.13 on February 20th, 2018. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Second?
We don't have to vote on this.
Oh, sorry.
I like it. That was good, though.
That's good.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else?
No.
Okay.
No.
I attended the Finance Committee meeting last night with Denise, and let's just say it's a work in progress. We'll leave it at that.
Sure.
But there are a lot of people working really hard to balance the budget, so we'll keep everyone updated. Next, we have Town Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One item simply to announce that I'll be moving in the next week to appoint the 3 work groups that we have previously discussed, one covering employee benefits, one covering government efficiency, and one covering school budget efficiency. So we'll be reaching out to those individuals. They'll prepare a final report to submit to me. I will prioritize that and then forward that to the selectmen as appropriate.
Great.
So we'll be moving in the next week for that.
Perfect. Great. Okay. Action list, I think we're on number 3, right?
Yes.
Appointment of Jeff Moulton and Robert McIsaac as members of the Harbor Advisory Committee, both of whom we interviewed at our last meeting.
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Jeffrey Moulton as a member of the Harbor Advisory Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Okay. Appointment of Robert McIsaac.
I move the Board of Selectmen appoint Robert McIsaac as member of the Harbor Advisory Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2020.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Last this time, huh?
Nevertheless. Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Appointment of Dylan Cook as Technical Support Specialist.
Madam Chair, I move that the board appoint Dylan Cook as an IS&T Technical Support Specialist, employee at will, effective February 28, 2018.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mitch, did you want to comment on this?
We went out for advertising, best candidate for this position,
Great.
and he'll be an excellent fit.
Great. Thank you. Any further comment? Okay. Roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Great. Oh, goodness. Wanted to do this while Jim was here, but he ran out. Accept the resignation of James Waddell from the Green Community Task Force.
I move that the board accept the resignation of James Waddell from the Green Community Task Force effective immediately.
Okay.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded, and obviously thank Jim for his work. Jim does a lot of hard work on a lot of things around town, and we appreciate all of them. Any further discussion? No. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Great. Next, we have permission to place a table in Barletta Park for off-the-hook walking tours.
Sorry. Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the board grant permission to Michael McCarthy and Patrick Maroney to place a table in Barletta Park from 10:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. from late May to mid-August.
Second.
Madam Chairman,
Yes?
may I speak?
In a minute, not right now. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and is there anyone here to present this or discuss? Peter and Gail?
Hi, I'm Peter Weber, representing the Rockport Division of the Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here with Michael's mother, Gail, who also can speak. Michael couldn't be here to speak on his own behalf because he's got a very important school project at Bryant that he has to work on tonight. And we both advised him that he better stay and focus on that.
Good call.
Michael interned for us a couple of years ago. You probably know him as grew up in town, and I think he was a lifeguard for several summers too.
Waiter, too.
waiter. He's a good young man, and he impressed me when he was an intern for us. He helped out at our visitor center. And he, over the Christmas holidays, he got in touch with me and said that he's interested in creating a new business, a new enterprise of guided walking tours for Rockport with a buddy from college as a summer business and a summer job. So we talked a lot about it, and he talked about what he wanted to do, and he's come up with a great name for it, Off the Hook Walking Tours. He's got a logo that I haven't seen yet, but he wasn't looking for a permanent storefront, just a place to basically operate from. So we suggested that he look into Barletta Park near the visitor shed downtown as a place to just station himself and be able to meet and start his tours. So I encouraged him to get in touch with Mitch and with the town to see what permits might be needed to do that. Would he be considered a vendor to do something like this? So again, I just wanted to say how this came about, and that he certainly has my support and encouragement to give this a shot, see if it can work. As you know, there are free walking tours done by Peg Coonley and others, and Michael's aware of that, and and Peg is aware of what Michael is trying to do. They haven't talked directly, but Peg has told me that she would love to talk to Michael and give him some tips and see how they could work together and complement each other. So I hope you'll support this.
Great. Gail, did you want to add anything?
Michael's last words to me, because like a mother too, I didn't want him driving 4 hours for one night in the night. But he said adaptability, if it was an issue of a table, he could do a sandwich board. If, adaptability, whatever would
Don't
make
say
you
sandwich
happy.
board.
Okay. That was his
Got
main
it.
thing.
Okay,
and I
thanks.
said I would take notes and
Okay.
relay any.
Good. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Toby, really quick comment directed at me or question?
Yes, indeed. Certainly directed at you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Anytime we're having public spaces used to make money, the town of Rockport should be getting something out of it. Whether it's the farmer's market, one sacred cow, or this, or parking pieces of houses up at the dump. You go on and on about how hard-pressed the town is financially, and you spurn money. It needn't be much, but every time public property is used for private gain, the town should be compensated.
Thank
Right,
you.
and there is a permit process in which I'm sure Mr. McCarthy would have to go through, just like everyone else. And we can't just say, okay, Michael McCarthy has to pay $5,000 because the town needs $5,000. I mean, there's a process that he has to go through. And I'm sure he will have to pay for the permits.
We'll certainly have Deb have a conversation with him and address any permits that he needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spoke to him on the phone. He called,
You did?
about maybe a month ago, and he's a business major, and I remember him. I remember when he was born. My God! But he was a waiter at my place by the sea, and he's got a great personality, and I think it'll be a nice addition to the town, and I support it. He's a young kid trying to make a couple bucks while he's in college, so. And I think it'll be providing an excellent service to the tourists of Rockport that are coming in.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea as well. My only concern, and if he were here, I would bring it up with him, is I just don't want, I want, like I say with the entertainment down there, I want people to go to them. I don't want them pushing
Right.
on people. Does that make sense? I don't want them to be I don't want anyone walking downtown to feel like they're being solicited. Does that
Right,
make sense?
right. Mhm.
And we've said this we've had this issue with the street performers as well, that we want people to seek out hearing the music or the performance. And like this, I would hope that, tourists or locals would seek them out and maybe see their table or, whatever their little setup is. But I think it's a great idea, and I encourage, anything that gets people to learn more about downtown.
Gail, is he gonna be out there, just weekends, or is it every day? I mean, when does he plan on being out there?
There's a whole business plan in here.
I can't get into it.
The idea too is to do a lot on social media, so it isn't a matter of soliciting down there at all. This is what they do is, the Instagram or the Facebook.
Yeah, he gave us, he gave us a really impressive, a whole business plan about
He
it, which
did,
is
yeah.
great, yeah. So that would be my only message to him, is that we want people to seek them out.
Yes, exactly.
Denise, did you have a comment or a question?
No, I was just going to say I was very impressed with the business case. I guess the only question I have is, what are they going to charge?
I don't know. I think they're still.
I think
trying
this
to
is
figure
late
out, and
May.
I think they'll talk with like the Peggy Coonleys and there's a woman in Gloucester to get some parameters on that.
Yeah, and I mean, I would think of it as this is kind of a test, you know, and see how it, it's a pilot, see how it goes, and, you know, and I think maybe after he's down there for a few weeks, maybe he could come back and kind of report to us, and I'd just be curious to see how, but that's a great spot with the chamber there, and isn't there's a little library down there? The little mini library is there, so that's kind of a cool little happening spot.
Yeah.
The menorah goes there.
I was gonna just say, I imagine with his waiter experience, he'll be able to generate a lot of tips too.
Yeah, and he can meet with Mitch and Debbie in the office, and they can go over kind of how things.
We'll
how
certainly
things
work,
go
if,
down
when he
there.
contacts us about the permits, we'll have a conversation about appropriate locations and help him through that process.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Good.
Cool. I love to see young Rockporters doing cool stuff. Yeah. So we've already made the motion?
Yes.
Okay, any further comment?
No.
Okay, all those in favor, roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly.
Aye.
Selectman Campbell.
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson. Aye. Selectman Sheedy.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Great, congratulations.
Thank
Tell
you.
Michael we look forward to the tour. Great. Thanks, nice
Thank
to
you.
see you both.
Thanks for sticking it out.
I know, thanks for sticking it out. Sorry, sorry we're so late. Okay, goodness gracious. 67 Long Beach to reflect a change of address.
Madam Chair, I move the Board of Selectmen approve and sign a lease for 67 Long Beach with Mary Jane Arrico and Louis W. Arrico Jr. to reflect the change of address.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded, and this is just a housekeeping issue, I assume, and everything is all set, Mitch? Great. Roll call vote, Selectman Donnelly.
Aye.
Selectman Campbell.
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Great. Next, we have the establishment of the DPW Building Committee.
I'll take that if you want. I move the Board of Selectmen establish a 5-member DPW building committee.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Mitch, do you want to comment on this?
Madam Chair, this is the statutorily required committee for the DPW facility.
Right, and it's the DPW Facility Building Committee is a 5-person working committee comprised of 1 DPW commissioner, 1 town operations manager, 1 finance committee member, and 2 citizens with applicable backgrounds such as architecture and construction costs. Right, and I believe that they are already like well on their way, looking for people, finding people.
Folks have been soliciting. I know that for our building committee, we have somebody who's coming for an interview in 2 weeks. So we have, interest is generated in both of these.
Yeah,
groups.
Bruce told me they had a lot of interest.
Yes.
Which is great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any further comments on this?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was speaking with Monica Lawton last night before the Finance Committee meeting, and her whole career has been in construction, and she's very interested in serving on this committee.
She's here, Denise, actually.
Oh, hi, Monica.
Great. And Monica, have you talked to?
I had talked with Bruce.
With Bruce.
About it. I did send him a letter as well.
Perfect. Great. That's exciting. So, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay. Selectman Donnelly.
Aye.
Selectman Campbell.
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson. Aye. Selectman Sheedy.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Great. Last but not least, annual town meeting warrant articles. And tonight is not to set positions on the articles, it's just to place the articles on the warrant. And then, Bob, I know we're gonna meet with you in a couple of weeks. I know it's looking like it's gonna be quiet, not much going on. But why don't we make a motion, then I'll let, I don't know if
Yep.
you want to have any comments to make tonight as well.
I move that the Board of Selectmen place Articles 1, 2, 3, and 4 on April 7th, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly.
Aye.
Selectman Campbell.
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Okay. Now we're on to, Mitch, should we briefly say what each of these is?
I can certainly do it very quick.
mind? Okay, great.
Absolutely.
So why don't, let's have somebody make the motion and then you can do it.
course.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Selectman Sheedy?
Sheedy.
Oh, me? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I have a sleep now.
I
I
know.
move that the Board of Selectmen place Articles 1 through 6B on the April 7, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Okay.
Madam Chair, number one is agent for trust funds for other town officers. Number two is pay prior year bills, standard article. Three is rescind any debt authorizations that are no longer needed, again, standard. Number four is the amendment and approval of the compensation schedules. 5 is the general fund operating budget. 5A is water enterprise operating. 5B, sewer enterprise operating. 5C, community preservation operating. 6, capital, general fund. 6A, water enterprise capital. 6B, sewer enterprise capital.
Great.
Good.
Any questions on those? Yes. Okay. Any comments from the board?
No.
Okay. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Okay, next.
Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen place Articles A through F on the April 7, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mitch?
Article A is Chapter 90 monies, acceptance and appropriation. Article B is the action grant. C is the Hawk grant. D is the senior care grant. E is the open door grant. And F is the assessor's reval free cash appropriation.
Okay, any comments? Okay, any comments from the board on these? Okay, Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Great. Next, Selectman Murphy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I
We're
move
all
that the Board of
asleep.
Selectmen place Articles G through L on the April 7, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
Second?
Okay, Mitch?
G is renewing the Community House and Council on Aging revolving funds. H is free cash appropriation to the General Stabilization Fund. I is free cash appropriation to the Capital Reserve Stabilization Fund. J is reauthorization of the Parking Benefit District. K is the acceptance of the OPEB trust under the Municipal Modernization Act. And L is appropriating from the special revenue account to a capital account, $10,000 for the granite pier oak tree replacement. Based on the settlement that we have, we need to transfer
Oh,
that to a
great.
capital account.
Great. Okay. Quick question. So I was confused last night at FinCom. Does Joe use the Community House revolving account?
He does.
He does, okay.
He does, yes.
But then for labor, he transfers it?
So 5,000 is, 5,000 of it comes from the revolving account and the rest comes from the general fund.
Oh, got it. Okay, I was confused. Thank you. Any further questions on this? Okay, roll call vote. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Great. Next.
I move that the Board of Selectmen place Articles M through Q on the April 7, 2018 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Okay, Mitch?
Madam Chair, M is it will either be a lease or an easement for 20 years and authorization for the school roofs for solar panels. N is a liquor license petition article, so that is automatically on the warrant.
Yep, that's fine.
O is wastewater treatment limitations, also petition article automatically on the warrant. P is recreational marijuana ban. Q is zoning bylaws affecting locations for marijuana establishments.
Okay. So I just want to stop here for 1 second. The way I understand it is the first marijuana one would come up, right? And then if that is voted down, there will be no motion on the other ones?
No, I think the way it works is that
Other way around?
if,
I think it's the other way around.
yeah, the other way around. So if there's a 2/3 vote in favor of banning marijuana establishments, then it goes on the ballot, and I don't think the other articles come up.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Correct. That-
The others will come up because you don't know what will happen if there is a ballot and a
Oh, right.
Oh, right.
You need to have regulations in place.
Got it. Okay, right, okay. Now, I know that, Mitch, you've been talking obviously to town council a lot about this, because town
Correct.
council, and Bob, I talked to Mitch about this today, but there is a lot of confusion, I know, that's come from the planning board, and I know a lot of people that even attended the hearings, there's just a lot of confusion. So town council, hasn't she offered that the board could defer to town council to give an explanation of
If the
them?
moderator
If
would
the
would
moderator,
approve, council would be able to explain those if you'd like.
I was thinking that could be really helpful if
Sure.
the moderator approved, if we deferred to town council to help with the explanation. Does that make sense? Okay, we can meet before to discuss, just to make, do you have any other comments on that?
Not really, not at this time. It's, often I'm not at this meeting, so I wanted to come to see what all the hubbub was about, and,
It's riveting, isn't it?
So exciting.
We're like slap happy at this point.
it's very exciting. Certainly, we may become a green community here.
You're like already warming up your jokes.
I know.
But, I think we
Lot of
all
smoke
have,
here.
we all have a lot to learn. Our office is, is looking at this and, going on the Cannabis Control Commission's website, trying to figure out, what the deal is. I chaired a meeting in Gloucester several months ago.
Oh, yeah.
With, their health department and police chiefs and a bunch of people that were looking at, Copeland and Page also looking at the way the regs, they thought they were gonna come out, and then the legislature changed that a lot, so now I have to really work to get up to speed, and there's gonna be a lot of, steep learning curves.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the most important things is for us to make it as clear as possible at town meeting to the voters in terms of what they're voting on. You know what I mean? And I just think that's one of the most important things for us to do, especially when items like, because honestly, it's not ideal to me, just the layout of the articles, but it is what it is. So I just want to make sure that we are doing the best we can to make sure that it's kind of in the clearest, most concise. Like, I don't think that these are articles that we should have someone get up and speak for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? I think people have a short attention span at town meeting. They want the facts. They want it quickly. So let's just get it done. If you could just stand up and say that, I think we'll be all set. He can't, he just can't control
it's gonna
himself.
be, yeah.
He just can't control himself. Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
Wearing his Bob Marley tie.
Literally. Toby, quick question.
Following on from the confusion at the planning board's hearing, where Herman Lydia told people that they can offer amendments to the marijuana district if there's to be one, told people that they could make it more restrictive. I put questions in the second letter I wrote to you, the one that's stamped February 20th, asking that you would get those to town council. And I think that, you need to get the answers, because some people may wish to change or add to or subtract from the districts proposed.
Okay.
And so you need to be able to know beforehand whether that's something that can be done or not.
Okay, we'll make sure that gets to town council.
I've already spoken
You
with them on
already
the
have?
topic, and
Great.
as with any other article, you can make amendments on the floor subject to what the moderator deems is appropriate within the parameters of the article.
Great, great.
I'll be having a lot of joint meetings with.
Honestly. I was just gonna ask the chief if he had any concerns or questions with the, meeting logistics. I know obviously, you're welcome to make a few comments.
About the marijuana, recreational in town, but I'll reserve those comments for town meeting and maybe some meetings beforehand in
Great.
in preparation for town meeting.
Perfect. Yeah, you're welcome to come when we discuss our positions on the articles, if that would be helpful to you. For now, you'll just take in Bob's totally inappropriate jokes.
And a second question that's
Sure.
relevant to the town meeting. One of the things I wrote to you about changes for the section in the government bylaw committee is that hearings aren't required on changes to the charter as things now stand. And the bottle shops, if they're to happen, are changes to the charter. Am I not right?
I think, I would assume that they are, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because,
Because they
No,
were-
right.
I don't,
I don't think that they.
No?
No.
Really?
Yeah,
no,
I think there's been only one charter change issue.
Oh.
correct, it's,
Okay.
it's petitioning for additional liquor licenses.
Oh, for
That's all it is.
additional,
That's all
For
it is.
additional licenses.
Correct.
okay, so we could confirm that.
We certainly
Okay.
will.
What I asked for, was, whether we're going to have public hearings sponsored by the Government and Bylaw Committee on changes to the charter or, changes to the code of bylaws, and they're not required as it's written now.
Okay.
So are we going to get a public hearing, and who's going to hold it?
So, Madam Chair, that's a petition article, so there is no
Right.
ability for anyone to make any changes until town meeting on
Right.
that.
And my opinion is that this board will just discuss our position like we will with the other articles, right? Okay.
If I may, so the Government Bylaw Committee, as it often is in flux with its membership, and it appears that it was below quorum, and we have a new member
Mhm.
who seems to be, I think you've met him, he was at a
Mhm.
meeting that which Linda introduced him.
Yeah.
And he wants to hit the ground running, and I'll talk to him following the meeting tonight, and see whether we can get up and speed.
Great.
But the question wasn't answered whether we get a public hearing or not.
Well, it's a petition article, so I think we have to, right, we're not gonna host one on it.
There isn't anything that can be
Right.
changed, it's been certified
Right,
as
it is, it's, right, it is what it is, so.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and then, actually, the last one.
I move that the Board of Selectmen place Articles R through W on the April 7th, 2018 annual town meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mitch, do you want to just go over these?
R is regulating sales of medical marijuana. S is regulating the sale of non-medical marijuana. T is rescission of the aircraft landing area section of the zoning bylaws. U is the article to design, construct, and equip a new DPW facility. V is to hear the report of the ad hoc water committee. And W is to accept the reports of town officers.
Great.
Second. Oh, no, we already did that.
What happened? I was at a planning board meeting a couple weeks ago where they were talking about some amendments to the zoning bylaw. Those just didn't.
The only one they sent forward was the ALA.
helicopter? Okay, good.
And then I'm assuming I know we have another pre-meeting, but I'm assuming like a big crowd at this town meeting. So I just want to make sure we're good for the date, auditorium.
So we have a meeting on Friday with the clerk, the moderator, myself, and IT to talk
On the
about
logistics?
logistics.
Right.
The clerk, I believe, would like it to be in the auditorium. There are some logistical issues that we have to address.
Yikes, don't we
relating
always
to
do
that.
spring in the gym?
Yes, Jim.
Is the gym not open? Yeah.
There was people are more and more complaining about the comfort of the.
Well, we'll tell them to bring a pillow, but
The chairs.
I know, but I'd rather be able to fit everyone.
This is gonna be a huge one.
Well, I don't think we could fit everyone in the auditorium. Maybe it will make somebody make a motion to approve some money for some comfy chairs.
Rent pillows on public property and make a fortune.
Just as long as you get a permit.
But I think this is gonna be a big meeting, and I want to encourage people to come, right? Okay, great. Roll call vote on these. Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson, aye. Selectman Sheedy?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Great. Any other questions? Ruth, Bob, we good?
We were chit-chatting, and I may have missed the Roman numeral article.
Right. We did those at the beginning. Do you want to just run through? Yeah.
Sure. The Roman numeral articles are for the current fiscal year formally.
Right.
this Town meeting. Year-end transfers within the budget. Roman numeral 2, sped stabilization transfer. 3, fund any union executed collective bargaining agreements. And 4, reappropriated balance from the MBTA parking lot paving funds to the Evansfield handicap ramp capital account.
Great. Okay. Good. This is exciting. A big town meeting. Any further questions? We meet next week.
We have a meeting next week, Madam Chair. The first portion is the Long Beach Improvement Committee. And the
Yes.
second portion is joint session with the Finance Committee to discuss the final budget.
Right.
What time does that start?
I believe 6 PM the board was aiming for.
We said earlier, right? That'll be nice. Maybe get home before 10. Man, I don't know how FinCom does it. Last time, I don't think I got home till 11. It was
a long night.
late. It was a long night, yeah. Anyway, okay, anything else from the board? Okay.
You know how I'm a member of the CPC, or I've been the liaison to the CPC, and
Yes.
I think we should have somebody else do it to
Okay.
follow through.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's just put that on our next agenda. Great. Thanks for sticking with us tonight, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Selectman Sheedy.
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson. Selectman Campbell.
Aye.
And last but not least, from New York, Selectman Donnelly.
Live from New York.